characterizations have a legitimate historical origin. The extraterrestrial alien is a popular yet extremely obscure idea of the modern world. In this analysis, we will decode the hidden symbolism behind this interesting concept and its initial derivations. Checkpoints for review: gray aliens, reptilians, and the extraterrestrial origin of Aboriginal people. These modern concepts are misnomers. Greys and reptilians of today's science fiction folklore, or more importantly, the ancient astronaut thesis, originated from the mysterious history of the Aboriginal humans of pre-cataclysmic Earth. Here's our summarized analysis. The phenotype and genetics of pre-cataclysmic humans was in fact non-mammal in nature. We have agreed in previous videos that evolution was never the case for the advent of the world's indigenous populations. We now know from the records that our indigenous ancestors left, biodegeneracy or devolution was and still is apparent. Now, in the proposed portrayals of extraterrestrials, exhibiting extremely ambiguous traits, large black eyes, elongated heads, and more advanced anatomical traits than said normal humans in the case of the gray aliens, and humanoid serpent-like features as in the case of the reptilians. These are exaggerated symbolism of the phenotypes of our earliest ancestors. Ancient civilizations portrayed the earliest humans of our planet as serpentine. Kukulkan, or Quetzalcoatl among the She-Olmec Mayan, Sobek of the ancient Egyptians, and the Naga in the Dravidian civilizations. These features became lost by predominantly Earth-bound Aboriginal people from the destruction of our ecosystem. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was one of the very first who introduced to Aboriginal Americans the history of these destroyed ecosystems from the deportation of the moon. This is key in understanding the root of significant degeneracy which manifested in Aboriginal genetics. The deportation of the moon was the earliest known Earth cataclysm, which was initiated by a cosmic war, and can be found in detail in the written records and oral traditions of Aboriginal cultures globally. Prior to this mass cataclysm, our planet had no tilt or seasons. Land masses had no tectonic plates. The global magnetic field was completely aligned, as well as the biological structures of all species, including plant life. The phenotypic features of Aboriginal people prior to these events were elegantly large, dark brown eyes, which had no sclera or visible white areas, due to higher brain functionality, elegantly elongated heads, or a crest, such as of the Amarna dynasty, referencing the crown-like structure of the original human skull. Our ancestors possess underlying semi-aquatic anatomy. Lastly, the hue of the Earth's original inhabitants was blackish green, a greater quality of internal and external melanin. After Europe infiltrated the Punic systems of the Mediterranean and the Nile Valley, this history of pre-cataclysmic Earth became symbolized under the mythos of Hyperborea, which is a said Greek term meaning beyond the north wind. Keeping in mind the pre-cataclysmic Earth is referred to as Tuwanasavi in the Aboriginal American Ethno-History. The north wind was venerated by the royals of ancient Tamare or Egypt, whereas in the mystery system, the biological root of the so-called pharaohs was stated to have come from the north wind, or pre-cataclysmic Earth. An Earth that was in perfect equilibrium with the solar winds. Briefly, in previous presentations, we have acknowledged the practice of ritualized mating that was found among certain lineages of the ancient world, and its initial purpose was to transition the genetics of our race back to this original anatomy. It becomes important to note that in exploring etymology, the Moors or the Black African Muslims revived this science of lineage. One of the names of our bloodline was Najala, the phonetic root for Injil, which had nothing to do with the Gospels found in modern religion, contrary to popular belief. Different variations of this word, such as Nagar, is equivalent to Netcher in Tamaray or Egypt, or the Naga among the Dravidians. Names in the Moorish languages such as Neket or Naket adds clarity on the origin of the modern word snake, with the letter S being a prefix. The term Najala, which is also rendered as Anjal, we find is the origin of the word angel. These are all references to Aboriginal so-called DNA. Stay tuned for the closing audio clips of James Cameron, the creator of the Avatar films. Also European occultist Rick Smith, who in an incorrect analysis on the origin of humans, he does interestingly insert, in his own words, of an avionic or advanced bioluminescent bird-like origin to indigenous people. My position is that this is a tampered retelling of the symbolism of Kukulkan, of our ancestral Shi tradition, who is none other than the winged feathered serpent. Also interesting to note that it has become common knowledge that many said dinosaurs in fact had feathers. Another significant correlation.
Every piece of nature photography I've ever seen, every moment that I've spent in a forest up in Canada where I grew up catching, frogs and snakes and that sort of thing, just, wanting to be kind of one with the forest, which I did naturally as a kid. I loved it. My time underwater, as a scuba diver, hundreds of hours all over the world, seeing amazing colors and reef fish and various animals that got those colors and those creatures got incorporated into some of the plants and animals of Pandora. It just made them really big as opposed to the little tiny ones you'd see on a reef. So the inspiration came from really all over the place my whole life. It also came from my sense of a strong sense of outrage and injustice about what was happening to the natural world, what was happening to indigenous cultures around the world, what had happened to them historically.
Now, what were the Yankeels? Well, the Yankeels fit right in with the mythological perception of an angel in that they are an highly evolved, avionic, bird-like race of beings. The best description that has ever been visualized on screen is in the movie The Abyss by James Cameron. The transparent beings on there, which was a perfect rendition too, because the Yankeels were half in and half out of the third dimension. They were so evolved, they were more non-physical, to the point, like they depicted in The Abyss, you could see right through them, but they were also physical at the same time. Okay, their name, Ankeels, becomes the word angel. They had the secret ingredient that Ninhursag and Ea needed. They had what's called the gene for passion, the ability to get over that hump and stop thinking like a slave and start thinking like a master. So Ea and Ninhursag, they take the genetic code for passion from the Ankeels and inject it into the beast, the secret group, the anointed ones. At that point, then they start evolving that much faster